We're all set?
Sorry. Okay, I am going to call to order the town council joint work session with the planning commission, April 2, 2024. Call to order. Do we do the pledge to the flag for this or no?
We can, if you'd like.
We can.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Be seated. We are here for a joint work session. I think I will just, for the record, introduce who's here. We have council members Dan Cortellesi, Raymond Hamilton, Gordon Weiss, from the planning commission, Vic Newton, otherwise known as James, but infrequently so. Mary Jo Manning, Tom Hund, the chair. Do we have anybody on?
I don't believe the church is on yet.
Don't believe. Okay. And of course, we have Tyler Newman, and Catherine Watkins. I think to begin, let's start with Tyler, with an introduction to why we're here.
Great, thank you, Mayor Kleinman. Members of the planning commission, I ask that you guys bear with me. I think that y'all have already seen this presentation, but I did want to touch on this with members of town council present as well, just so that everyone is aware of why we're here today. So this year we being staff and the planning commission have been tasked with the 5-year review of the town's comprehensive plan. So I do want to touch on the purpose of the comprehensive plan. It is an expression of the community's vision in the future. The 2019 comprehensive plan stemmed from over a year's worth of work from the planning commission, town staff, and Charleston County. There was a decent amount of public engagement and workshops that went on throughout that process as well. It does serve as a guide for public policy decisions, such as identifying where and how growth and development should occur. An example of where this was recently applied out here was in our analysis of the Andel annexation last year. It is required by law, and South Carolina law does empower the planning commission to handle this comprehensive plan review. The reviews are required at least every 5 years, and full updates must be done every 10 years. As previously noted, our last 10-year update was adopted in July of 2019. The comprehensive plan now requires 10 elements. Our 2019 comprehensive plan, you'll see that there are 9. There was a 10th resiliency element that was added by the state in 2020. At minimum, the land use element must be adopted to enact zoning regulation. And at least the community facilities, housing, and priority investment elements must be adopted to enact the land development regulations. So that speaks to the importance of the comp plan, and that we have to have these sections updated in order to have zoning regulations and land development. Each of the elements, and you'll see this in our current comp plan, includes an inventory of existing conditions, a statement of needs and goals, as well as implementation strategies with corresponding timeframes. Here is just an overview of the 10 elements that are covered in the comp plan. That's population, economic development, natural resources, cultural resources, community facilities, housing, land use, priority investment, transportation, And then resiliency, which as I noted on the last slide, was added as a requirement in 2020, which was after the revised comprehensive plan in 2019. Just to touch on what each of these elements are, the population element considers the historic population trends, anticipated growth, as well as the demographic specifics like the size and number of household, education levels, and income. That is one of the elements that we will be covering at the April 10th Planning Commission meeting. The next is economic development, which addresses the characteristics of the available workforce, where workers live, and other aspects of the local economy. The natural resources element, things to consider there, what kinds of water bodies, parks and recreation areas, agricultural land, forest land, and wildlife habitats that the community has. Cultural resources, these can be historic buildings and sites, unique commercial, residential, and natural areas, educational, religious, or entertainment institutions, community facilities, assets necessary for development, such as water and sewer and wastewater infrastructure, fire protection, just your basic medical, government, educational facilities. The housing element, what are the locations, types, ages, and conditions of existing housing? How many are owner occupied or renter occupied? What is the cost of developing a sufficient amount of affordable housing? And what regulations may prevent that? Land use, that should consider the municipality's current and future land uses in categories such as residential, commercial, industrial, agricultural. So basically our zoning districts. The local government must adopt this element before adopting zoning ordinances. For transportation, it is essentially exactly as it sounds. That considers road improvements, new road construction, as well as pedestrian and bicycle projects. That should also coordinate with the land use element to provide planning for sufficient transportation options for the current and future land uses. Priority investment is analysis of projected federal, state, and local funds for infrastructure and facilities in the next decade, as well as recommended projects for those funds. And then finally, the resiliency element, which was most recently added, considers the impacts of flooding, high water, and natural hazards on individuals, communities, institutions, businesses, economic development, public infrastructure and facilities, and public health, safety, and welfare. Apologize, that was a mouthful there. So for this 5-year review, in terms of big deadlines that we have, our anticipated final draft will be August 2024. Final recommendation from the Planning Commission to Town Council in October of 2024. The first reading and public hearing would be at the November Town Council meeting, and we would hope to have that then adopted at the December 2024 Town Council meeting. In terms of the objectives that we are looking at over the course of this year, we are accessing and updating the vision statement, which I believe that Mayor Kleinman is going to touch on today, as well as the background information, goals, needs, and strategies of each element. Additionally, as I've noted, we'll need to incorporate the resiliency element into our comprehensive plan as well. And then I believe that each of you should have a copy of this. This is our proposed schedule for the year. As you'll see, it's pretty tight. Every month, we're going to be looking at several elements for the next few months, beginning with the April 10th Planning Commission meeting next week, where we will cover the population, housing, and economic development elements. We have built in there will be our public comment portal. We will have open for a period of time. We're going to have a page on the town's website dedicated to these updates as they come through. Additionally, while we do not have a specific date at this point in time, this far out, we would also like to build in a community drop-in meeting where we'll have an opportunity for anyone that's interested to come in and speak with town staff, Charleston County staff, members of the planning commission. That concludes my kind of summary of why we're all here. If anyone has any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Could you send me a copy or us on a copy of this presentation?
Certainly.
Thank you.
What's the difference between the 5 and the 10 year? How is this 5 years is more of an update, 10 is just a recreate?
Exactly.
Okay.
5 years is more so going through data and making sure that everything is still accurate and up to date, as well as, you know, and certainly we're gonna look at our goals and strategies that are listed in there, and if there's anything that is not in line with current goals and strategies, we'll certainly address that as well. But in terms of a wholesale rewrite, that's something that we would look at doing with that 10-year review.
Okay. You mentioned having a drop-in. What about other community involvement? Are we gonna be asking, you know, questions, surveys, feedback from the community for this, or is that typically done at the 10-year?
Well, actually, we are gonna do that. We'll set up the public portal for that purpose of soliciting community views. But if you look at Tyler's calendar here, and there's multiple opportunities to accomplish that, including public portal, community drop-in, and then the public hearing when this is actually before the council. So there's 3 different opportunities, 3 different ways.
Okay.
And I would envision a survey, or extensive surveying and extensive public outreach certainly is something that would be done with the 10-year, with that 10-year update, where that would be as much public engagement as we possibly can. Whereas this is more so us just kind of trying to look at the existing document and make sure that it is not grossly inaccurate.
Tyler, is this with coordination with the POA, or are we pretty autonomous, or are we hand in glove with the POA? Because I'm sure they've got a lot of this stuff as well.
This is the town of Seabrook Islands comprehensive plan. There is reference to the POA throughout the document at various points. Not all that extensive, but there is reference to the POA in various sections. As those come up, I'm running those by Heather and making sure that everything that's in there
There's conflict
is still.
between what we come up with and they, and it's kind of something you.
Right. But for a significant amount of this, in terms of what we're updating, it's primarily data driven. So I mean, if there's data that we need to get from the POA, which actually for some of the updates that we have going forward next week, we did have to reach out to them for some information for some of that. So they're certainly aware that the process is ongoing, and anything that is specific to the POA, we're keeping that in the loop on. But this is the town's comprehensive plan.
Anybody else? No? Okay. So I want to just spend a few minutes, some of this, what I'm about to say, probably covered at the council meeting, for, March, but some of it, maybe not. One of the things that I stressed at council is, the calendar being, ambitious and actually strenuous. You can, if you look at it, you can see that starting, April, we were thinking, I think, when, Tyler, at the beginning, that April, the first month, would be a manageable set of elements that the planning commission will address, but it gets much more voluminous in the next few months. May is really big. July is going to be a lot. the consequence, we have a finite number of months left in order to get this done in 2024. And the ordinance does require it to be done in 2024. And the statute does, I should say. And so let me just apologize in advance that it is going to be a lot to do. And somehow we're just going to have to find the way to do it. And I think Tyler's very mindful of that. And as long as all of us are, I think it'll be fine. So what is all this based on? Essentially, and the slide that Tyler had on before, with the blocks, Catherine. Yeah. What are, those are the elements, those are the chapters, if you will, in the plan. Everything, all the verbiage, what's it based on? It's based on the town's vision. And if you had looked at the 2019 plan, the very first page quotes the town's vision. And so last month, the town council adopted a new vision statement. And I don't think that it changes who we are in any extensive way, but let me read it. The vision statement is: the town of Seabrook Island will continue to thrive as a beautiful, safe, and resilient coastal community where thoughtful development is harmonious with the natural environment and where all stakeholders are valued for their contributions to the overall health and well-being of the island. It's those principles that will drive all the work that the planning commission is going to do and the council is going to do in updating this plan. So when we see the update of the development one, this will get plugged in, and that's the driver. Only other thing I think that I wanted to say was, I think that the process itself is going to be, I know I'm going to find it to be both challenging and enjoyable. Working with Tom I'm looking forward to that a lot. And Tom and I will work together on a month-to-month basis to just make sure that we're on the same page, that the planning commission and council aren't like running in divergent directions. And that's all I have to say. Anyone have any questions or comments about that? No, seeing none. Tom, you have anything you want to say?
I appreciate the thoughtfulness going in to the beginning of the planning. Thank you very much for that, and I really look forward to working with the council. That's something that I was hoping to do this year, not only on the comprehensive plan, but other issues, so that it's a big year for us. So I appreciate your willingness to work with us that way, and thank you for that.
I would just say, at this time, if there's anything that stands out to any members of council with regard to the current iteration of the comprehensive plan, anything that's just stood out to you as something that you'd like for us to focus on in our endeavors in the coming months, now would be the time to just let us know if there's anything that stands out to any of y'all.
Yeah, one thing that the environmental group's working on is the marsh management plan. There's reference to the beach management plan in it, but nothing to the marsh. Is this something that we want to add that we will work on as one of the goals? Or is this something that, because we don't have it in place, we don't reference it?
It'd probably be a reference the same way as the beach management plan. And it'd be its own separate document, so you'd have three going forward, so you'd have the comprehensive plan, the marshfront management plan, which could be just referenced as if it gets done this year. I know we're going to be discussing with the consultant and having it drafted. Odds are it's probably going to take a little bit longer than a year, so we can reference a plan is coming soon and the update.
Isn't the beach management plan required in a marsh management plan? Well, is it at this point? Is that correct?
Yes,
I'd just like to add that in the context of the comprehensive plan, something like that could certainly be added simply as a goal or a strategy. For example, in our resiliency element or in our natural resources element, we could have a goal that is, adopting a marsh management plan.
Sure.
We don't have to, and even if we did have one in place, we wouldn't, regurgitate the marsh management plan in a certain element. We would reference its existence. But I certainly think with that being, one of the goals that we do have, it makes sense to add that as either a goal or a strategy in the applicable element, whether that's resiliency, natural resources.
Dr. Alco is coming to the meeting on the 11th.
Catherine, was there something you were trying to, get in there until Tyler took the?
not Tyler covered it. It's stacking.
Question, see we had, 2020 resiliency. Explain, I think I know what that is. I mean, that's the nimbleness in an unexpected situation, being able to adapt to whatever it is. Is that the thinking when you put that in there?
Well, so we didn't add the resiliency.
No, I know.
So and this is from the Municipal Association's website, actually. It says that, the resiliency element considers the impacts of flooding, high water, and natural hazards on individuals, communities, institutions, businesses, economic development, public infrastructure and facilities, and public health, safety, and welfare.
To be reactive to those situations.
Right, and I will note, that Charleston County has already gone through updating their comprehensive plan and added that resiliency element to their plan. With us working with Charleston County staff, I certainly think that they'll be able to, help guide what exactly should be going into that element.
Yeah, Tyler, that was my next question. Last time, we did this, I guess 2018 was the year we went through it. The county, and I was the chair of the SAPOA Planning Committee. And we met with them several times and I understand why this wouldn't reach that level, because this is just a review, not the whole thing. However, the question was then, how is the county used, and what can we expect from them? Because again, in 2018, they were a big part of it.
The county is going through and doing most of the data-driven updates to this.
Okay.
Any policy-driven changes will be a result of the planning commission meetings. And Charleston County staff will, they're the ones who are manning the edits to these. They're doing all of the clean new documents for this. But everything that they're doing is data-driven. There will be no policy directive, anything whatsoever that is from the county. The only things that they will be adding, at their discretion is data-driven.
Yeah, and I don't think they were policy driven the last time. I think they just guided the process as part of that, and again, engaged with various members of the committees, like you said. They may go to ARC to talk about building.
This is gonna be, what the planning commission and town council want it to be. From a staff standpoint, this is an update, and we are updating it accordingly. Anything beyond that will need to be directed to us to do so. So if there needs to be, extensive outreach to SAPOA or ARC or anything along those lines, that we need to know that on the front. Because the way that we're approaching this is that it's a primarily data-based update with, some changes that will come along the way. There's been a few items that have stood out to me just looking at these first three elements that I think that we'll probably have some discussion about at the planning commission meeting, where it's not just gonna be a cut and dry, hey, we changed the numbers, you guys good with it? There's a few items that we are gonna need to talk through, that I've specifically asked the county to highlight as topics of discussion. But anything beyond that, the expectation is that members of the planning commission are coming to the meeting with any other outstanding items that they'd like to see changed in mind. And then that's why we have a built-in turnaround time where for each of these meetings, like when we get to the May 8th meeting, you'll see that there's still, the population, housing, and economic developments are all listed for that meeting date. And that's because any changes that come as a result of the planning commission meeting in April, we're then gonna incorporate those into those elements, re-review them with the planning commission to make sure that they meet the intent of what they were looking for. So this is gonna be a rolling process in terms of the changes that are occurring. We have staff data-driven changes, and then we'll get any changes that come as a result of the meeting. The final product that comes to town council will be a product of all of those meetings.
Yeah, I mean, you can see everything has incorporated around 2 meetings, work and review. Which is fine. No, I was just wondering what their role, if they had a role, as much of a role, I wouldn't think they would.
It's
But I don't know.
really a support role more
Okay,
than anything is what they're providing.
Before we get too far down the road, I just wanna go back to Raymond's point before. I put that on my list, the references to the marsh management plan. I looked over and I'm pretty sure I saw Tom writing it as well. So, I mean, that's kind of the idea, and that's what, Tyler, I think, was driving at a little while ago, about to the extent you all, the council members have ideas on points for the plan, forward them to Tyler, and then they'll all get into the queue.
That's a perfect segue, because we're gonna have this portal. There are gonna be ideas from our neighbors and friends and residents, that we're gonna want to collect, so that we can at least give them proper attention, as we go through this process. Some will deal with, some can't, or others will just be a reminder, please, guys, so we want to make sure we have a good collection point, which we can sit through, and on the agenda, have a place to review ideas.
Definitely.
And one other point on the resilience, before I ran for council, I never looked at a comprehensive plan. That was the first time I looked at this one, but in order to prepare for this meeting, I wasn't sure what to expect, so I looked at Charleston County, Kiowa, and Sullivan's Island. Sullivan's Island has what I think is a very good example, but they call theirs, they did it before, I guess, 2020, but they call theirs a sea level rise. And what they address is more of a hazard mitigation strategy and an alignment strategy with local and regional locales of how you would react in case of the flooding. But they had, graphs from NOAA to show the anticipated flooding, over the next, I think, 50 years. So things like that, if you wanted an example of what I think it should look like, I think Sullivan's Island would be a great template.
Mary Jo?
I was just gonna ask, public awareness. Will you be, putting out any notices about the fact that we're doing this? I think opening the portal is a good thing, but I'm not sure how many people will be proactive to go and look. They need to have a bell rung somewhere to call attention to it.
Well, all of it is, Captain, you should probably handle this better than me. but all the meetings are public meetings and they're all on, the town website. I think Abby, has been doing a great job at getting meetings, noticed on,
Headlines?
guidelines.
Well, Timelines does it where they've started to post the meetings for the week, where they might not have the agenda posted with it, but it directs you to the website of all of them, and then if any member of the, community wants to be on like an agenda send-out list, so any agenda that gets pushed out, I have a list that people can,
Do the agendas say comprehensive plan is being revised? Comprehensive plan is up for rework?
it says that, and we've been, discussing it, it's one of our strategic priorities, I believe.
Yes.
We added it to it, so it's been talked about,
Okay.
and I know that the portal, it looks like it's going to be kind of getting the community involvement kind of closer to the end.
Mhm.
But if any member of the community wants to submit a public comment, they can send it to me ahead of time, so I can send it to the planning commission.
You know, it might be worthwhile if we're gonna do the portal. Example is open a portal earlier and seek, where you can on the various elements. So in other words, open a portal in the end of, well, it's April already, this month for the first 3 elements. And seek input there. And just, I don't know if that's what you're looking for or not.
I don't think we're looking for it on an element by element basis. That's really getting into the weeds. And we have a really tight turnaround time here for each of these. I'm not opposed to the idea of opening up or soliciting comments on the current comprehensive plan at whatever time we deem appropriate. And I don't necessarily see any harm in doing so well in advance of the September 1st date that we have listed there. And I think that September date is more so geared at eliciting comments for our final product
Yeah,
that we're looking to move forward. So if there's any comments that folks have on the current comprehensive plan, that is certainly worth hearing out as well. I see merit to that.
Right, I mean, certainly we want, public participation in the process. So Dan, point well taken. It'll really, I mean, Tyler, Joe, Catherine, will, I'm sure, be able to make some tweaks to the portal, to get it open sooner. And maybe, do more to directly, publicize, that it's open. And we're soliciting comments, whether it starts off being comments on the existing plan and then at some point shifts to comments on what the changes are, that we have or haven't made. I think I'd leave that to staff, to determine.
yeah, my point is just simply, if in the next couple of months you're dealing with, gosh, population, housing, and economic development elements.
These prints are gonna get larger as Tyler gets older.
Hope so.
Yeah, I don't think he'll ever catch up to, because as he gets older, some of us also get older. But anyway, if you're dealing with those 3 elements, you might ask for reaction to the old one, and just deal with those 3. And move through.
I got you, we got that your point, it's a
Okay.
good point. But still, staff
Let him
can address that.
In the announcement, you really ought to put a link to the current plan, because I'll bet you there's 20 people out there that even know it exists.
That's ours.
So I might mention if, we do have a schedule and we do have dates.
Yeah.
So that people can see what's coming up. And if we describe those 10 elements that we're dealing with, somebody's gonna react to 2 or 3 of them, somebody might not. But if they knew the schedule and knew what subjects were being covered, I think, they're not gonna get into the level that we're gonna get, so I don't think. But there'll be some out there that are gonna follow, you know that.
Absolutely so.
Anyway, I think if we publish that and know that it is a public forum, you're welcome to. That. Then we'll get comments.
Yeah, definitely. Anybody have anything else they want to add? Catherine, do you think of anything else that we were planning to cover? I think we're good, right?
Are there any other goals that you would like the planning commission to kind of focus on with the update, Gordon or yourself too?
We talked about expansion of this facility in the current plan, it talks about a capital improvement plan to be developed. I don't think we've ever really developed one, I may be mistaken, but maybe focus a little bit more on it, especially now that we've got a finance committee, so that's something that could help out with that as well.
No, I like the vision statement and the mission statement. I think those are very good. I think I'll put some thought in that. I agree with those.
I might ask the planning commission, and councilman, if there is an item for thought, when the mayor and I meet, we meet the Thursday before the planning commission. To try to discuss the ideas that we've heard and put them in some semblance of an agenda or whatever. That would be helpful for us to have those so that we can organize. Yeah. Before the meeting.
Okay. I think, I think that's right. That's the best way. Yep. If there are no more comments or questions, I think that we can.
Well, was there anything else from the planning commission that had questions for council too? It's kind of like you guys can discuss as much as you'd like or as little as you'd like, it's not. There won't be any votes taken or anything, but it's just so that you both are kind of on the same page.
Well, I think that's where this meeting will head, keep up with your reading, and you guys will, I'm sure. You read it more than once, frankly. Read it once, just read through it, and sort of get the flavor, and then you'll see some things along the way. That's been my experience. And we just did get some of the materials, so we got to.
Have you seen the resilience section element in the county plan?
I hadn't read through it at this point, no.
I think it would be good for us to see that.
I can send that to you if you'd like. I'm sure it's available online.
Well,
We can get that to you.
That I try to get it for myself.
Yeah, we can get that to you, but, no, right now I'm tackling the elements as they come.
Well, I just have a feeling that resilience overlaps, influences a lot of these other sections, and I'm interested to see how the county handled that.
In Tyler, didn't you say the county will be at the planning commission meetings?
They will be at all of the planning commission meetings.
But a lot of this is, thanks to Charleston, a lot of it's data driven, so. You're pretty daunting.
The task is more daunting on paper than it is, at least like, for example, for these first 3 elements, I can tell you, I mean, this is not definitive, but there's ballpark, maybe 5 real sticking points of conversation to have with regard to 3 whole elements, each that are 7 to 8 pages apiece. So, the bulk of what is in there is data driven, where if anyone has opposition to the data presented, we're gonna need to see that data that shows that says otherwise, but no, and I think in the copies that you've all gotten, we have highlighted some of the areas that we're looking at having kind of
You
open
yelled
discussion.
out certain items we need to consider, that's good.
Right. And by all means, I encourage all of you to essentially do the same. If there's any specific sections in there, anything that stands out to you, that we didn't flag as, something that we thought that there should be discussion about, by all means, make note of that, and we're, gonna go through each member of the planning commission, at each meeting, and that would be your time to say, hey, here on page, 2-4, I have a problem with this paragraph. So.
Tyler, do you want those comments in advance, or would you prefer we just bring them up during the meeting?
I think we're fine to just have the discussions at the meeting, because we've built in the idea that we're going to be incorporating feedback from the planning commission into the updates prior to each of the following meetings.
I would just say for the record that George Fink has joined the meeting, another member of the planning commission. Welcome, George. Yeah, I think that's all we got.
Great.
Do we need a motion to adjourn? Yes, can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thanks, everybody.